$100,000. One envelope. One man. It wasn't just a sermon, it was a moment that stunned the entire Seventh-day Adventist community. Pastor Carlton Byrd, known for his passion and boldness, stood silently for a moment at the pulpit during the annual camp meeting. Then, without warning, he did something no one saw coming. What followed wasn't just an offering, it was a declaration. Of faith? Of power? Or something deeper? The crowd fell into stunned silence. Whispers spread like wildfire. Cameras rolled, eyes widened, and a movement began. Because what Pastor Byrd dropped into that offering plate wasn't just a check. It was a challenge, a symbol, a statement that sent shockwaves across Adventist circles around the world. Was this an act of divine obedience, or a dramatic message to the doubters and critics? In this video, we break down the full story behind the $100,000 moment, the reactions, the controversy, and why this single gesture is being called one of the boldest moves in modern Adventist history. Some shouted amen, while others sat frozen, silently questioning everything they thought they knew about faith and finances. What happened next would ignite debates across congregations, social media, and even within church leadership itself. At the heart of the storm, Pastor Carlton Byrd's jaw-dropping $100,000 offering during a live Seventh-day Adventist camp meeting. Was it an unshakable act of divine obedience, or a carefully calculated statement meant to spark attention and controversy? What you're about to hear will leave you speechless, because this wasn't just an offering. It was a moment that cracked open a deeper conversation about power, purpose, and prosperity in the pulpit. In this video, we dive headfirst into one of the most talked about events in recent Adventist history. We'll uncover the full timeline of what really happened on that stage. From Pastor Byrd's powerful lead up to the stunned silence that followed, you'll hear direct quotes, witness the mixed reactions of the congregation, and explore why the internet exploded with both praise and outrage. But it doesn't stop there. We'll also break down how this single act is exposing deep fault lines in modern church culture, questioning the role of wealth, influence, and authenticity in spiritual leadership. What does this mean for the future of the church? Stay tuned. The answers may surprise you. Therefore, take a seat, pay close attention, and make sure to watch through to the very finish, since they most definitely didn't want you to know the final revelation. You must first comprehend the context in order to appreciate the scope of Pastor Carlton Byrd's $100,000 donation. This church service wasn't like any other. Every year, thousands of believers from all around the nation come together for the Seventh-day Adventist camp meeting. It is renowned for its stirring sermons, lively worship, sincere testimony, and spiritually stirring moments. Held in a big outdoor space with choirs singing, hands outstretched in adoration, and a buzz of excitement in the air. The expectation for this year's summit was already high. People were searching for a new life, with Pastor Byrd, a well-known and occasionally contentious figure in the SDA community, scheduled to speak that evening. The atmosphere was electrifying as they arrived expecting miracles, answers, and breakthroughs. Pastor Carlton Byrd is not like the others. As the current senior pastor of Oakwood University Church, a former speaker, and the director of Breath of Life Ministries, he is a seasoned speaker, a well-respected leader, and someone who is recognized for having big ideas. Whether they be charitable or visionary, you could sense the change when he took the stage with his Bible in hand, his well-tailored suit, and his clear voice boomed through the microphone. Everyone in the audience sensed that something significant was going to happen. The offering was not the beginning of the occasion. There was a message at the beginning. Pastor Byrd paced across the platform and said, "God's about to blow your mind," his voice growing louder with each sentence. The intensity increased as the sermon went on, but before he gives you the miracle, he'll test your obedience. Behind him, the chorus sung. The audience shouted preach and amen in response. He changed his focus from the message to the problem at that point. He talked about legacy, sacrifice, and faith. He discussed dismantling financial hegemony. The widow's mite, he said. Then he took the unimaginable action. The audience was silent for a while, as if they were all gasping. Then he remarked, "I'm not asking you to do something I won't do myself. So today, right now, I'm giving $100,000 to this ministry." Then there was a jolt of surprise, followed by cheers and muttering. Was 100,000 what he said? Is that accurate? Who even does that? Phones emerged. While some gazed in shock, others clapped. A few gave a headshake, Furthermore, the offering was more than just a donation at that very moment. It turned into a public event, a line in the sand. However, what prompted such a daring action? Was it a sense of spirituality or something more logical? Because this is where it becomes more complex and maybe contentious. Every activity in the ministry world, especially those of well-known pastors, is multi-layered, especially when it comes to finances. Therefore, it was more than simply a spiritual gesture when Pastor Carlton Byrd promised a whopping $100 offering at the camp meeting. It was a declaration. However, this was the question that went viral on social media and in church halls. Was it a premeditated tactic or a leap of faith? Let's dissect it. The faith-based perspective to his followers and numerous other believers. Pastor Byrd's gift was a contemporary example of selfless generosity and a radical act of faith. He used biblical precedent to construct his point during his speech. He brought up Abraham's readiness to provide Isaac. He reminded the audience that no matter how hard you try, you can't outdo God's generosity by quoting Malachi 3:10. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse. The donation was seen by supporters as significant, a public statement that spiritual leaders must set an example, even if it causes pain. He did not ask anyone to sow without first sowing himself. That was the act of leadership. It made me reevaluate my own religious journey. Pastor Byrd is viewed by this group as a man of conviction who bravely exemplifies the power of giving not only for show, but to push the boundaries of complacent believers. The strategic view, however, is another. Not everybody was persuaded. Why now? Why this moment? And why so public? Was a question that many online critics were quick to pose. Pastor Byrd has undoubtedly been a divisive character in some SDA circles. Some have charged him with branding his platform rather than shepherding his flock when he left Breath of Life Ministries in 2021 and transitioned into more general leadership positions. This $100,000 public offering that was streamed live, featured in news stories, and spread on TikTok and religious Facebook groups appeared to some to be a publicity stunt. Here's what caused the conjecture. Time. Byrd was thought to be pursuing a more prominent denominational job at the time of the offering. Was it a show of kindness or a ploy to gain influence before the next big move? Visibility. This donation was verbal, public, and repeated several times during the service. In contrast to anonymous giving, why not leave a legacy by giving discreetly? Critics contend that this was done to solidify his legacy and ensure that the 100K moment would be remembered when people reflect on his ministry. Not to be overlooked are the subsequent questions. What was the source of the funds? Does he donate from church finances or his own wealth? Is this to cast a shadow on earlier disputes? To be clear, there is no indication that church funds have been misused. Perception is power in today's social media environment, though, and many people are creating their own stories around the gesture, contrasting historical trends. Pastor Byrd has made big moves before. His large-scale evangelistic gatherings, lavish worship shows, and innovative construction projects have earned him recognition over the years. He was the driving force behind the multi-million-dollar church building project at Oakwood in 2016. He started a virtual revival series in 2020, which attracted sizable online audiences. Despite working in traditional Adventist structures, he has always had a megachurch perspective. Therefore, a $100,000 offer is more than simply a moment in that perspective. It fits into a pattern: large reactions, large delivery, and big vision. And perhaps that's the idea. The true question, though, is this: is a pastor's public giving improper? According to some, leadership entails being conspicuous in sacrifice and setting an example when the stakes are high. Others disagree, quoting Matthew 6:3, which states, "Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." So did Pastor Byrd demonstrate the strength of faith, or was he just bragging? That argument is still going strong. When Pastor Carlton Byrd said $100,000, the impact was more than just sentimental. It was intensely personal, social, and spiritual. The audience's response within the venue was immediate and fervent. Others blinked incredulously, while others raised their hands in acclaim. Some sat silently and glanced around as though they had questions. Did he say what I believe? He claimed that something changed in that hallowed place where there was a great deal of worship and a greater expectancy. From spiritual exaltation to pecuniary astonishment, the atmosphere changed. Worship or whiplash are the instantaneous responses. Church leaders and elders applauded in the front rows. Some, clearly inspired by Pastor Byrd's audacity, sprang up to meet the occasion with their own offerings. "That's leadership. That's next-level faith," yelled one of the attendees. However, not everyone was prepared to rejoice. Younger guests were seen speaking at the rear, some even taking out their phones to record, and others shaking their heads in shock. Their expressions were troubled rather than condemning. Is this a show or is it a church? It's strong, yet something doesn't feel quite right. Tuition money? It's a deposit for a home. The way it was done, rather than what was done, was the source of the tension in the room. The internet catches fire. Applause or indignation. Short videos of the offering moment quickly appeared online. Divergent views erupted on Adventist Facebook groups, YouTube Shorts, Twitter, now X, and TikTok. Within a few hours, millions of views were received. Pastor Byrd was hailed by supporters as a divinely inspired model of obedience. He was criticized for manipulating people's emotions and engaging in spiritual showboating. Spectators questioned the effect. What can the typical struggling Christian learn from this? This man is a true steward of God's wealth and is walking in divine favor, according to comments. In front of cameras, he's giving away $100,000. But how many churchgoers have lost their jobs this year? Where's the openness? Is it from a fund or is it his own money? I'm simultaneously inspired and perplexed. The comment that went viral, "Are we even doing this correctly if the church applauds a $100,000 donation but is unable to provide funding for a scholarship program for its own children?" That remark also touched a nerve. Quiet discussions behind closed doors among church leaders. There have apparently been more intense discussions between regional leadership and church elders. Others are concerned, while others are hailing the deed as a turning point in faith participation and fundraising. Some leaders have privately expressed worries about the offering's lack of financial disclosure, the precedent it sets for members to follow under duress, and the possibility that the emphasis may move from service and salvation to wealth and appearances. Numerous conferences. Was this planned or spontaneous? Will people now feel that their $100 offering isn't enough? Are we sending the wrong message to struggling members? These aren't light accusations. In fact, this one moment is sparking what some are calling a values crisis within the denomination. Presidents reportedly asked during follow-up meetings. Generational divide. Public giving, particularly by pastors, has long been regarded as a symbol of honor. But newer members, particularly millennials and Gen Z, were not as impressed by this contribution as the older generations in the SDA church. One Reddit member commented, "When I hear $100,000 offering, I don't think faith, I think manipulation." Many of them are already dubious of megachurch culture, and this performance felt uncannily similar to what they've seen on televangelist networks. Ostentatious, emotive, and calculated. It's receipts, not feelings, that I need. Where's the responsibility? While some younger viewers praise the gesture, they continue to have doubts about its public execution. The Seventh-day Adventist Church prides itself on order, stewardship, and humility. Therefore, when a prominent figure makes such a large public offering, it shakes those core values. Some congregations are now holding Bible studies and sermons focused on giving ethics, accountability, and financial stewardship. But why shout it from the stage? That's where it loses me. A divided community. What happens now? The question that remains is whether this moment will bring the church together through inspiration or further split it through controversy. Pastor Byrd's offering has caused a rift that spans age, theology, leadership, and even geography. Some are using it as a teaching tool to inspire radical faith rather than careless spending. Transparency is crucial in religious circles, particularly within close-knit denominations like the SDA Church. Since Pastor Carlton Byrd revealed that offering at the camp meeting, a resounding question has been reverberated throughout the Seventh-day Adventist community and on social media. Where exactly did the money come from? A big gesture always draws scrutiny, and Pastor Byrd's offering is no different. While many applauded the faith that went into the gift, others started looking through old interviews, pulling receipts, and even examining church budgets and public salary reports to find the answer to the very question that was upsetting the flock. Let's examine this objectively. Was it church funds or personal wealth? Pastor Byrd is not your typical pastor, having held several high-level leadership roles in the Adventist Church over the years, including administrative positions within the South Central Conference, Director of Breath of Life Ministries, Senior Pastor of Oakwood University Church, and Speaker. Some speculate that the money may have come from personal savings or investments, and that Byrd has received stipends, honorariums, and love offerings for his national and international speaking engagements. These roles also come with a respectable salary, but nothing close to the amount that would comfortably absorb a $100 offering without extensive planning or extraordinary means, honoraria, and publishing income. Carlton Byrd has been a well-known speaker and teacher with books, conference appearances, and media engagements. He may have amassed tens of thousands of dollars in speaking fees and related revenue, fund designation, or pre-allocated church project funds. Some even claim he has made prudent investments in real estate and personal endeavors over the years. Though nothing is publicly confirmed, it becomes hazy at this point. Was the $100,000 personal or allocated for ministry projects? Some viewers worry that the donation might have originated from a redirected fund intended for a more general church purpose, like building expansion, mission trips, or youth outreach. If so, critics contend that calling it an offering without providing context is deceptive. Pastor Byrd has yet to make a formal public statement explaining the source of the funds, which has left a void of speculation. Some people feel that he is choosing humility over clarification, while others feel that transparency is required when a significant public gift is made in front of believers who are struggling financially in the post-pandemic world. When someone makes a faith move like that, it inspires. One TikTok commenter put it best. However, it becomes confusing when there is no further explanation. A balance between inspiration and aesthetics creates a subtle tension. Is this meant to challenge our faith or remind us who's in charge? Another person inquired. Discussions regarding finances, ethics, and appearances have resulted from the wider church response, which asked the difficult topics in regional conferences and local SDA churches. Some are requesting increased financial transparency among SDA pastors and the yearly reporting of contributions, both personal and church-related, that exceed a specific threshold, instruction on how to distinguish between public impact and personal sacrifice. In an effort to give young members the skills they need to distinguish between performative giving and spiritual inspiration, some youth leaders have even begun holding courses on faith against financial pressure. These discussions go beyond policy. They are cultural, and as a result, the church is changing. They don't want you to know this startling fact. According to some insiders, a small number of regional conference officials pre-approved Pastor Byrd's offering. If accurate, it might indicate that the event was more prearranged than it appeared. Even more shocking is the suggestion from a few unnamed sources that this offering might have been used to leverage subsequent financial efforts, establishing the tone for future multi-million-dollar fundraisers in which Byrd's act will be the main attraction. This wasn't merely a present, assuming that's true. In a long-term fundraising narrative, it was a calculated move. However, there is no confirmation. The Seventh-day Adventist Church is at a crossroads, grappling with a question that goes far beyond money, and there are no answers. Is it possible for faith and money to coexist without turning into a show?